Welcome to Woodstock City Council. It is Thursday, February the 3rd, 2022. This meeting is being held electronically in accordance with Section 238, subsection 3.3 of the Municipal Act and Section 16.6.24 of the City of Woodstock procedural bylaw. The meeting is being live streamed on the city's YouTube channel, and a recording will be posted on the city's website following the meeting. The meeting will also be broadcast on Rogers TV. An agenda for the meeting can be found on the Agendas, Meetings, and Minutes page of the city's website. Councillors will be raising their hands in view of the webcam when moving a motion, requesting to speak, and when a vote is being taken. If a member of council is disconnected or having technical difficulties, we will take a recess in order to attempt to rectify the issue. If technical difficulties exist that prevent the meeting from continuing, the meeting will be adjourned and reconvened at a later time. If a councillor needs to leave the meeting at any time, they're requested to inform the clerk. And with that, welcome everyone. I'll ask the councillors to turn on their webcams. And any disclosure of conflict of interest? Seeing none. Any disclosure of new business? Matters arising from the minutes? Then we'll move on with the minutes from our last regular council meeting. Councillor Talbot?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lauder that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on January 13th, 2022 be adopted.
Thank you. Any errors or omissions in the minutes? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And no additions to the agenda or presentations today. And our delegation has not been able to join us. So we'll move along to our report. So our first report is regarding the Woodstock Hydro Legacy Fund. Councillor Talbot and seconder, Councillor Lauder.
Mayor Birch, I believe we missed the additions to the agenda. So I'll do them if you don't mind.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Schadenberg that the following items be added to the agenda. Department Report E1, request for funding for the development of a downtown marketing program.
Must have double clicked. You've heard the motion. All those in favor for the addition and carries. And we'll move right along. So our first report, we'll go Councillor Lauder and Councillor Tate.
Thank you. I'll move that Woodstock City Council approves the changes to Council Policy AS010, Woodstock Hydro Legacy Fund Investment Policy as outlined in the report.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing, Councillor Schadenberg.
Sorry about that. I was wavering whether or not I'd ask a question or not, Your Worship, but maybe a question through to our administrative services to Diane Campbell. Just a quick background on this. I know we deal with the Hydro Legacy Fund on a number of occasions, but maybe people aren't always viewing through Rogers TV or just viewing through YouTube or wherever our meetings to understand what's like Hydro Legacy Fund and its ability to sort of sustain itself long term for the city of Woodstock, because it's been in place obviously for a number of years.
Your Worship, through to the councillor's question. The Legacy Fund was put into place after the sale of the original Woodstock Hydro to Hydro One, and we received the funds. And at council of the time, their intention was to put the money away, the net proceeds of the sale away in perpetuity, and we would use the investment income or a portion thereof to bring into the revenue fund budget to mitigate tax increases. Eventually, we revisited the policy and included a an option to purchase industrial land as an investment in the city. And so we did that a few years ago with the Corlett Farm, and then that and what ended up happening was the value of the fund dropped below the original contribution of capital, and we the rule sort of was that we wouldn't take any money out of it if it was below the original amount. So as the investment income is earned back, the fund value is increasing, and now we're going to use it again to purchase another piece of industrial land. Other than that, that's kind of the basis for it, and it can be used for other things, but it would require a two-thirds majority of council to approve any changes to what we've set in place at this time.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And carries. And our next item is the dedicated gas tax. Councillor Tate and Councillor Accioni.
Excuse me, I'll make the motion. Woodstock City Council refer the report regarding 2021-2022 dedicated gas tax funding for public transportation to the bylaws section of the agenda.
Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, not really discussion, maybe just more a comment, Mayor. I noticed on CTV London, there was a great story on what the City of London was going to do with their gas tax money coming out. And I think that story may have aired on a Tuesday, for example. So I'm thinking, well, when's they're going to have the story about what Woodstock is going to do with its money? And we had to wait a full 48 or 72 hours for Mr. Hardiman. Ernie Hardiman's been around for a long, long time. I don't want, maybe it wasn't necessarily his fault, but we had to wait around 3 days before we finally found out what Oxford County is getting, and in particular Woodstock, Tillsonburg, and Ingersoll. So I thought that was quite unfortunate. And I saw my guess is I wish the provincial government would just sort of issue one press release that would say, here's what the communities are getting. And therefore it looks like everyone's getting their money on the same day, and not that we had to wait an extra 3 days to find out what our dollars were going to be.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And perhaps in the communication, they'd also get into some of the intricacies of which parts of the gas tax funding go where, and which level of government, and ones that can be used for capital expansion or operation. But of course, every time someone puts gasoline in their personal automobile or corporate vehicle within the friendly city, those hidden taxes as part of the price trickle up, and some trickles back down. We'll move along to our cultural report. We have a request for removal of a heritage designation. Councillor Schadenberg, and a seconder, Councillor Lauder. Thank you.
Yes, so Woodstock Council approves the removal of the heritage designation of 130 Finkel Street, and that the necessary bylaw be read.
Thank you. Discussion? And we'll start with Councillor Schadenberg and then Councillor Talbot and continue.
Sure, thanks. I guess, Mayor, first of all, I'd like to maybe have our Manager of Culture, Karen Houston, make a couple of comments, because I know she's done her research, and I know the Oxford Historical Society and so many other people have done the research, and we've talked about it because this came to council last November, I believe it was initially.
Yes, Your Worship, through to the question. This particular property, the original came forward in November asking for a report, and the committee themselves are not happy that this is where this has led, but they're also realistic. So you'll notice that in the actual report, they are requesting, they are aware that the actual designation is where that responsibility ends. They're hoping that they can work with the property owner and city staff and basically help some of these things as moving forward. But yeah, that's pretty much where we are now.
I just want to comment further, because I've done a bit of research looking at The Village that Straddled the Swamp by Doug Simons, who sadly passed away last month at the age of 91 in the city of Woodstock, but also the book Bits and Pieces. And what's interesting when you start looking at the history of Woodstock, that this house was built in 1819. If you could try to put that in any kind of perspective whatsoever. So one perspective I came up with is, you can see in the book Bits and Pieces that the first ever train arrived in Woodstock just after 12 noon on December the 15th, 1853. So many, many years after this house was built in 1819. Of course, those same tracks are right by that particular house. And I've talked to Karen a few times about different scenarios to do with that property. So I thank her for some of the background she had supplied. But unfortunately, the condition of the house really means that it is time for it to be taken down.
Thank you, Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess when I was reading the report, I'm looking at what the Heritage Advisory requests were in addition to, and one was that the demolition be completed in a way not to impact the ground or surrounding property, and is limited to above ground structure itself to preserve the areas adjacent to the house. So I'm thinking if someone has bought this property for investment and to develop it, I'm wondering how any of this criteria could even be met, because once we take this off of the property, the designation, we don't really have any right to make any type of demands on the person who purchased the property. And I mean, another one was for an archaeological assessment and commemoration. So I sometimes I'm thinking that if we leave the designation on it, we stymie the developer. And then if we take the designation off, it becomes a free-for-all. They can go in and do whatever they want. So I guess I'm wondering if there is any possible way that part or some of this could be preserved, possibly not in its original part, but somewhere on the property, even if we do move it. Like is there some creative way that we can at least preserve some of it even before the designation's taken off? Or just any suggestions at all, Karen?
Yeah, Your Worship, through to the question. It is a real quandary because the situation we're in presently isn't being forced by the developer, it is by the city, in the sense that this was not safe. And so that's part of the quandary that we have. So the requests that they are making are with that in mind, in the sense that the structure itself is no longer sound. We wish it was, but it's not. There's not a great deal left to preserve. And so that's part of the issue. So what they're talking about is the committee basically said, right, what can we preserve? What can we do to have some piece of what the history of this site is? And at this point, what they're looking at is archaeological. So there's various ways to do a demolition. And one of them, what they were trying to sort of hope for was that if the ground was frozen, the topsoil and any of the archaeological, that from a midden heap or garbage heap, that kind of thing, would be preserved. So we could actually see 165 years of what was their lives like at this site. My understanding is the building is in very, very poor shape. And with the trees that are on the site, my understanding is that they're going to have fairly small pieces of equipment. And again, this is not my area. This would be more something for planning or others to tell you more about. But basically, they just need to knock it over and basically remove the top of the house from the site. And at that point, you're right. There really isn't much that the city can do as to preserving any part of it. But again, it was the city itself who put forward this, and that's how this came about.
I realize that, and I guess it's just I guess trying to keep a little bit of history somewhere somehow, and how we can go about doing it, especially when we don't own the property. So okay.
Your Worship, through to Councillor again, just on that note, when we saw the property 2 years ago, I think we could have done exactly what you're talking about. I think it still had enough bones. There was something that we could have done. Unfortunately, with the pandemic and other issues that we've had in that time, I'm afraid that's not the case anymore.
Thank you. And Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Karen as well, and right along with Councillor Talbot is my thinking. But is there a foundation under there? So, you know, I'm just thinking 1819 is there even a foundation to save that we can put a plaque or something? Because obviously the building, anybody that has seen it knows that it is simply not safe. I don't see a way of saving it, unfortunate as it is.
Your Worship, through to the councillor's question. Yes, this was something that the committee actually talked about, that it's a thing that is done in a lot of heritage areas where if there is a foundation worth or possibly saving, is you save the outline of where that is. And that's what you do as part of your commemoration, and that's part of what's built into the site design. Again, we understand that with the designation coming off, we don't have a lot of clout or ability to insist that this happen, but it would be one of their top ideas of how to commemorate the site.
So the question is, in your opinion, should or could we save the designation, but approve somehow to have the demolition done in any way at all? It's one or the other. There's no halfway, I guess, is the question.
No, like many laws or bylaws, the fact is it's sort of, the designation is how you save the building. When that is removed, it is removed. Now, if we still have at this point, as the report says, there were several people who made comment. They have another 30 days to see where they want to go with that, and what comes forward from that. But my understanding is that yes, when it's gone, it's gone.
That's too bad. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Talbot.
Thank you. And that was, Your Worship, through to Karen. One of the questions I was going to ask is about the outline. So there's no way, once the building comes down, there's no way of designating the outline, is there? So that who has ever purchased the property wishes to develop it, that the outline of where the house was stays. So it has to be an actual structure, right? It can't be.
Your Worship, through to the question.
Outline.
The designation as it stands right now is talking about a house. If you wish to designate, it does not have to be a structure. The cow is designated. So the fact is that it does not have to be an actual physical building, but you would need to then work on the idea that you're doing a new designation for part of the building. And that's only if the actual foundations, like even if they're in shape that we could do that, that's one thing. If they are not, I think what they were thinking was we simply have, either in the grass or something, bricked out. This is where the actual foundations, this was the size and this was the shape of the house that was physically here. And that would be the idea.
So I understand that. So this is where I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
So once we take the designation off, we lose control over that. Is that correct? Or
That is correct.
So, but with the it's still on there presently. Because would we have to file like a whole new designation, or can you take the designation and alter it to no longer say building, but say area or outline? Is that a possibility? We're a couple of months from spring. Well, Chili Charlie says we've only got 6 more weeks of winter. So, we could go out there in 6 more weeks and take a look at it and see if, when the building was to be knocked over, if there was an area there that we could still designate. And so that way, at least it was preserved.
Your Worship, through to the question, I do not have an answer for that. That would have to be something I would have to research, because I was mainly concerned about the fact that it was of danger. So I wasn't really thinking about just the actual foundation. That is something that we can come back with and see what we can do from there.
But I'm wondering then if we should just table the motion to give you time, say, to the next meeting. Is anything going to happen in the next 2 weeks? I don't know, maybe the CAO needs to comment on it, but maybe we just, it's February, right? If it means the difference
Right.
of saving the area that to be built over and still saves the outline so that at least, maybe it can be incorporated in plans and stuff, but if it saves that,
Your worship, through to the question, I think that because the fact is that we're still 30 days out, even if it was approved now. After the designation is off, there has to be a set amount of period for people to basically give comment after that, see if they want to take it to the tribunal, that kind of thing, the people who actually made comment. And we did have people make comment on this. So if we're tabling that and just leaving that, then yeah, it wasn't going to be torn down anytime soon. Anyhow, like it was at least a while away.
well, I just
Yes.
wonder, I'm just, myself personally, I just think if we tabled it for the next council meeting, it gives you 2 weeks to do some history or do some investigating, and if that's not a possibility, I just think that once we remove it, we have less chance of putting something else back on. So if we keep it in its place, maybe we can alter the designation that's on it now. It might make it easier in order to get another one. What's 2 weeks? I mean.
Thank you, Councillor. And I know that in some of the discussions in the past, especially regarding the unfortunate condition that it got to over the years, with the proponents, I believe some of the discussion included trying to do as much as possible. It would be a draw for the future development to have that type of recognition there, to save any materials and above ground things that could be incorporated or utilized elsewhere. Same with some of the recommendations we see in the report. And I understand, about whether some of these things can be compelled or not. But I think if we wanted to, it would be maybe advisable to have the CAO speak to this for a minute or two. And if after that, if council desired to have further staff report, then what we would do is defer the motion. But perhaps if council would like to hear from the CAO.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. So I guess just to clarify the beginning of this whole initiative, it did begin with the city of Woodstock, in the sense that we received a complaint from Woodstock Police Service with respect to the danger that their officers are regularly experiencing, having to go into that building because of unauthorized entry and occupation by other persons. And the wood frame structure that it is virtually impossible to secure to any degree whatsoever. So it was a regular occurrence, and it was a complaint that was received by Woodstock from us by Woodstock Police. It is certainly a building that, if it is being occupied in any way, whether authorized or unauthorized, would be easy to deem an unsafe structure under the Building Code Act, and essentially that is what has happened. So that's been triggered the demolition order, which triggered the whole discussion around the removal of the designation. It is an interesting question Councillor Talbot raises, and I think it's one that we'd have to take back and give some research to, in terms of whether or not you can actually designate a foundation footprint. And it's we can certainly take that question back and come back with additional information. Just going from my personal memory, the interior of that building, much of it has been stripped to its bare skeleton. It is just a frame building. Even the floorboards, in memory, in a number of rooms have been removed, and it is just simply the floor joists. I don't recall there being a basement. It's basically a crawl space, from what I recall. And if there is any foundation, it is quite likely a rubble foundation, which will, in all likelihood, be very difficult to try to preserve or maintain when it's exposed completely to the elements. It will be in very bad shape as it is, and once it's exposed completely to the elements, whatever mortar is left in it is just a matter of time before it begins to disassemble itself. But we can certainly go back and look at the potential of this and bring back more information to council.
Thank you. We'll continue on, Councillor Talbot, and then go around.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just back through to David Creary. So you're fine with a 2-week deferral?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Talbot, 2 weeks is fine. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I guess one of those things is you always wanted to not put your shoes on to say that you're the developer of that property, because we're certainly not. We don't own it whatsoever. But you have to sometimes take a look at the cart and the horse, because there's certainly the UTRCA concerns about future development there based on floodplain and erosion hazard property. And there's also the CN rail easement that we've seen on different proposals before. Our council has seen it recently. So there's other concerns. But that's not us to worry about whether or not the developer can actually build there, because he has to go through the planning office and be able to change zonings or do whatever he needs to do to satisfy himself. But I just think, and I agree with what Senator Talbot says, now that we've had some discussion on it, that a 2-week chance is a good time to sort of, we're not going to prolong things too much by doing so.
Thank you. Further discussion? We'll go Councillor Lauder.
Yes, after hearing the discussion, and I would agree with Councillor Talbot, is deferring it for 2 weeks. I don't think they're going to go in and knock it down within this 2 weeks with the way the weather is and everything. So I think that's a good idea, and just move on after that. So thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go Councillor Talbot.
Okay, from what David said, or what discussion, it wouldn't come down in 2 weeks. But anyways, the 30-day process doesn't start. So I'm going to make a motion then to defer this application till
Thank you. I think what we'll do first is if we want to do all the I's and T's, we'll do a withdrawal of the original motion if the mover and seconder want to withdraw. If looks like we have a consensus at council on that. So
yeah, I'll withdraw my motion, sure.
And that's okay with the seconder? Okay, so we'll withdraw that motion, and then now the motion to defer. Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself to defer the request for removal of 130 Finkel Street heritage designation until the meeting of February the 17th.
And we'll direct staff to prepare a presentation. And a seconder on that, I think I saw Councillor Accioni. And does anyone need to hear that motion again, or it's understood? So we'll defer, and staff will come back with a further information. All right, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And thank you very much for that. And we look forward to continuing the discussion. And our next item, we have disc golf. And looking for a mover and seconder on that. We'll go with Councillor Accioni and Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, the Woodstock City Council direct staff to continue to monitor the use of the disc golf course, but not advance consideration of a second disc golf course in the city at this time.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Discussion? We'll go Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Worship. I think as I spoke when we had the presentation about disc golf, I really didn't know that much about it, but just before they had come, I had attended the park in Paris and watched it being played, and watched people coming to the parking lot carrying their bag of discs. And so I had a better understanding, and I watched it. I do know where our course is, and I have been out there, and I understand the concerns, but I hoping that, we'll be able to improve it a little bit. And I appreciate the people that came forward with this idea. Again, we don't own all of the property that they're suggesting. And if we do take it over, it has been told to us that it'll be more of a naturalization. But that, even with that in being suggested to naturalize it because it is floodplain area, it's still quite possible we could have, a course in it would be a very interesting one. I mean, not all golf courses have trees and fescue and everything, so I'm sure disc golf could as well. So I know that the report is going to continue to monitor it, but I think we're going to see that the participation in this sport is going to increase very quickly. So I hope that staff is also looking at alternative areas, maybe not this one, but some other areas that might work well for this particular sport.
Thank you. Councillor Accioni.
Yeah, just more of a note that I have had the opportunity to play the disc golf out there, and it is a lot of fun. That's got nothing to do with the funness of it, but simply based on the study that was just done, and of course, us not owning the land, that's just as natural at this point in time anyways to not go too much further, but in the future, I'm sure we'll have another course. So that's all. Thank you to those that presented.
Thank you. Further discussion? I think there'll be a lot more people interested in finding out what disc golf is. And so we know that there will be more times in the future we'll be talking about this. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And our next one on the agenda is the request for the funding for the development of the downtown marketing program. And we'll go Councillor Talbot and Councillor Tate.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move that, subject to receiving funding approval for 50% of the cost, Woodstock City Council provide early budget approval in the amount of $40,000 for the development of a downtown marketing program, and that the funding come from the Downtown Redevelopment Reserve Fund. And further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign any funding agreements that may result from the type of application described in this report.
Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Lauder.
Yes, I wonder if Mr. Magyar could explain a little bit of what this request is for.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Lauder. Basically, what we're looking at is there are some opportunities. There's a number of programs from senior levels of government that are really aimed at downtowns at the moment. Part of that is COVID related, but part of it also is just helping smaller downtowns. And so we want to be in a position, this to be a proactive step in terms of approving these dollars so we can go forward to senior levels of government to say that we have some skin in the game, and we're in a position where we can dollar match with them if they're happy to provide us with some funding for specifically downtown program. This is specifically related to marketing the downtown. So we have a number of action items that are part of that. But as I say, this is a good step on the city's part to basically say to upper levels of government that we are committed to doing this and we would appreciate their support. So it's a very proactive step.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And our next item on the agenda is fire services. And we'll go Councillor Tate and Councillor Accioni.
I'll make the motion that Woodstock City Council, with respect to Municipal Code 802 consumer fireworks, the 4 conditions, and further that City Council approves the addition of Diwali for fireworks sales and discharge, and further that the amending report and bylaw be prepared.
Thank you. And discussion? Councillor Tate.
Yeah, just further to that, so it will just be on their holiday, whatever day that falls, correct? Through to the fire chief.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Tate, that is correct. The intent behind this is that the specific day that is recognized as Diwali, while it is recognized as a 5-day festival, it'll be a single date that this will apply to. It won't be for all 5 days. Similar to Victoria Day, it does shift from year to year, and we will work with the the communities to identify the specific date at the beginning of the year. So that's made available and part of the advertising for it.
So just further to that, just for the public's benefit, please do not set fireworks off other than those days. It does greatly affect a lot of the nature, people's animals, and older people. So please be respectful of all your neighbors and the rest of the citizens. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Worship, through to the chief. Excuse me. So this would be policed by our bylaw department, is that correct?
Your worship, through to Councillor Talbot. That is the current enforcement officers that are recognized within the bylaw, and it would remain the same, correct?
I guess that's the only concern I have, because I know that and I forwarded the one letter on to you, but we've had complaints about just fireworks being discharged not on specified days like that were allowed. And then the mess that's left over for cleanup. And so fireworks happen at night and we don't have nighttime bylaw officers. So I'm not sure how you can prove or get help if someone is discharging them at a non-appropriate time. And I know that you also in your report were talking about cleanup and stuff. So I know that when we've had some fireworks, they tend to travel quite some distance, the shell casings and stuff. And I kind of wonder how we actually enforce what we're asking for.
Your worship, through to Councillor Talbot, that is one of the most significant challenges with respect to the fireworks bylaw. We do recognize that our current staffing model for 2/3 of the enforcement actions are on a standard day shift schedule. They do encompass like the sales of and the licensing and that sort of portion as well. So we are going to look into the opportunities that whether we can make some agreed to alterations during the time periods here. We are dealing with contractuals or unionized staff that do have contractual obligations for shift scheduling, but we do have the ability to have some discussions on that to address that. Further is the response capabilities. Up to this point, Woodstock Fire, we only get involved in response to fireworks complaints if there's an associated fire or smoke not related to the firework being involved. We are seeing other municipalities have their fire apparatus attend complaint calls as well. It does register as an incident report for us. We can include that. It's just the challenges we have with that is I'm using a $700,000 truck with 4 firefighters on it for one thing. So we are going to take a look at what the options are that we have to have it, because as has been brought forward, it is challenging to have enforcement capabilities if you do not enforce them. And we do want to look through opportunities that we have for that.
So you may be coming back to us with more suggestions as
This is
not just the final.
Your worship, through to Councillor Talbot. So the suggestions that we've kind of included in there as part of the recommendation is for us to look at within the bylaw and the fire department what we can do with our existing staff and within the contractual obligations that we have to provide for staffing without additional staffing being brought in from that capacity. That we don't need council direction or approval for us to be able to do. That's something that we can do here. If there are other options, or after a review period we find that we're unsuccessful, we may come back forward, or if council brings something for themselves, it can always be alternate options too.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And next up, we have the purchase of the trackless mower. Councillor Accioni, and the seconder, Councillor Lauder.
Yes, thank you. Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council waive the tendering requirements of the purchase policy and authorize the purchase of one 2022 trackless MT7 tractor and attachments in the amount of $207,665 excluding taxes.
Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Schadenberg?
Yeah, from the mayor through Director of Engineering, I guess Dan Locke would be the one to speak to this. Is this a brand new piece of equipment or does this replace a piece of equipment? And of course, it's also nice to know that it's Ontario built, not only Ontario built, but quite frankly, almost locally built, this machine.
Yeah, through your worship, to the councillor's question, it is a replacement of an existing unit piece of equipment. So the other one will go to auction at once we've obtained the new one. And it is consistent with the units that we have now. So it does make the attachments interchangeable. So it gives us that greater flexibility and allows us to be able to do more things with the unit.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And that takes us down to bylaws. We have Councillor Talbot.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Tate that the filing bylaws be given a first and second reading. 95-16-22, a bylaw to amend the City of Woodstock's Municipal Code Chapter 153, Property Standards Officers Appointment. 95-17-22, a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the Director of Administrative Services to sign the letter of agreement for the transfer of dedicated gas tax funds for the public transportation program.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. Councillor Talbot.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Accioni that the bylaws be read second and third. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Accioni that the filing bylaws be given third and final reading. 95-16-22 and 95-17-22.
There we go. I clicked in the wrong spot. Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And so now that takes us to the part of the meeting where when Councillor Petter is watching it back, he'll be breathing that sigh of relief that no motions had been added to have him in charge of laneway snow clearing for the remainder of the season. So we'll begin today with Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the outside staff for their excellent job they did with the snow clearing on the January 17th storm. The storm dumped approximately 18 inches of snow over the 2-day storm period, and the plows got through all the roads in about 48 hours. And on the second wave on Tuesday, they were able to maintain garbage and recycling collection when many of our neighboring communities shut those services down. And Mr. Locke, would you mind mentioning how many snow plows that we have and the manner in which some of these plows are used?
Sure. So we, through you, your worship, to the councillor's comment, just add on, we have 11 road plows. There's 3 that are front plow with side wing, 5 that are front plow, 2-way front plow with the belly plow underneath. It's the underslung, they call it. And we have 3 loaders that have a front plow and side wing. So with these different pieces, the ones with the underslungs fit in those smaller, narrower streets, do a better job. So not every piece of equipment fits everywhere, but they get around, and I think the guys have done a great job. Our crews have been out there, you know, the first storm on the 17th, and then this one that we're experiencing now. We continue to go around and we get the roads in shape pretty quick, and they're working away at all the challenges that present. The first storm, we had a lot of, I'll say, stranded cars, got stuck, tried to get out and get in the way. And I know that I heard a number of folks, our crews, you know, pushing them out so they could actually get through. So, you know, take hats off to our crew, and yeah, I think it's we've done a very good job. This was my first storm that I got to witness here. So I kind of wanted to observe how we did it. And I was pretty impressed with for the most part. I think one of the challenges, and staff would likely say this as well, and I'm sure that council gets these questions, but our curb face sidewalks, we are challenged that we fill them back in. So I'm going to be looking into that and see what we can come up with to improve that level of service there, and hopefully provide a better solution to that. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have a few others. And the good news, the library patrons are able to go back in on February the 7th. So everything has been shut down with COVID, and they have had some staffing issues too due to COVID. So it'll be great to get back into the library now and just check out the webpage and see what they have to offer. And the art gallery are calling all artists in Oxford County. The Woodstock Art Gallery's high school juried exhibition is back for the second year. Students in grades 9 to 12 are invited to register now for the new impressions too. Submissions due at noon on March the 17th. And visit the gallery's website for details on the project. And it's being sponsored by DJ Design and supported by the Heart FM. And I would like to welcome Chris Produce and Seafood, a new business setting up in the city that they're already in there. Chris has and his wife have had a market stall for quite some time, and they've now expanded to include a permanent location in the city. So I just want to welcome them into the city and wish them all the best. And thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go next to Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, thanks a lot. First of all, your sports update, which I guess I'm required to do, especially with Mr. Petter not being here today. The Woodstock Navy vets are back in action finally after the COVID break. They have a record of 16-7, so they're a good hockey team this year. But they have a tough weekend coming up. They play Wellesley twice in Woodstock on Friday night. That's the 4th, of course, at 7:45. They host Wellesley, and they go to Wellesley on the weekend as well, I believe, on Saturday. So Wellesley Applejacks have a record of 19-5. So it'll be a tough competition, but a good way to get your feet back in your skates and get ready to move towards the playoffs. Also wanted to mention Ella Shelton from Folden, St. Mary's High School grad, though, from Woodstock, playing for Canada Women's Olympics for Team Canada. She had one assist last night. Canada beat Switzerland by a score of 12-1. I guess that's all I got to update.
Thank you. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to say a big thank you on behalf of a lot of people from social media to Mr. Locke and his staff. It's actually good to read some positive stuff on Facebook and everything. And there was a lot of positive about the snow removal and everything else. So it was definitely noticed. So please make sure you pass that along, Dan. And remember, of course, thank you. And for the general public, if you see snow, go slow. Had to run out of town for business this morning, and the people flying down the 401 is absolutely incredible. Slow down, people. I don't understand how you can think you're just invincible, but just slow down, get there on time, because you're only going to cause chaos for more people if you don't. And of course, if we do get a lot more snow, feel free to swing by my place. I'll do snow shovel lessons anytime you like. And we're going to see how much more we get. Anyways, everybody be safe. Don't forget, get out there, support our local businesses. Our restaurants are now open up again. Get out there. They really need your support as much as possible. All businesses do, of course, but they've been shut down a long time here. So get out, enjoy, be social, please respect, wear a mask, use sanitizer. Let's just get through this. The light, I hope, is at the end of the tunnel here very soon. Thanks, everybody. Be safe.
Thank you. Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to continue, Councillor Accioni, as they were only flying down the 401 until they hit Putnam this morning because westbound traffic the highway was closed. one tractor trailer off on the side and then an accident. So there you go.
Norwich Road and 401 was actually closed as well. When I got back, it was blocked completely.
It happens. People forget how to drive in Canada. And Mr. Locke, I tell you, if you can figure out how to deal with throwing snow back on the curb face sidewalks, you will make a lot of people very, very happy. But good luck with that one. And that's where we have a lot of people who can't shovel. I know I do shovel, even though it's hard on my back, but I have great neighbors that help me out. So I hope that when you have neighbors or other people that you can help when we get amounts of snow like this, that you can assist them or do some small part. If they can't get out, go and maybe get groceries for them or something. It's we seem to get a lot of snow all at once. It doesn't seem to come this slowly. And yesterday was quite a day with the rain, the slush, and then trying to move that off the driveway and then getting more snow. It was quite a thing. Just want to remind everybody that the walk for, walk for the homeless for In Out of the Cold is coming up on February the 26th. Sorry, coldest night of the year. Thank you. I have it in here. I just was looking at different things. Coldest night of the year. We do have quite a few local teams, and I know that we do have police teams. So if you are looking to sponsor someone, you can go on the page and sponsor some regulars who have walked a number of years in support of this. It's definitely going to a good cause. And especially since our inn has now been expanded and does hold more people, it's a great place to make a donation and to help out. So I hope that people will consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we had, of course, that prognostication from our local weather expert, Chili Charlie at the Southgate Center, and I was able to don my special fur hat for that event, but we were assured that it's going to be an early spring, and we'll see how this part of winter goes as we continue our 2022 budget discussions that will be looking at some of those items. And there will be another What's on Woodstock magazine issue coming out in the very near future. And so stay informed about city programming and what's going on through the What's on Woodstock magazine, our website. And of course, as any of the restrictions and mandates change from our local public health unit, the city website has up-to-date information there as well. And with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. We'll have Councillor Accioni and Councillor Schattenberg seconding. All those in favor? And we